All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on your assessment analysis report. I know, it can seem like a really big project, but stick with me. We're going to break it down into simple, manageable steps so you'll have all the tools you need to do an amazing job.
So get ready to put on your literacy specialist hat. This whole project is your chance to step into that professional role. We're moving past just summarizing a case study. This is about real, deep analysis, the kind of special education evaluator or a literacy coach does every single day. So, let's jump in.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with your mission and the toolkit you'll be using. Then we'll walk through how to actually build the report, piece by piece, zeroing in on that core analysis and how to connect theory to what you'd actually do in a classroom. And of course, we'll wrap up with how you'll be graded so you know exactly where to focus.
All right, first things first, let's talk about the main mission here. And honestly, the title of this section says it all. This assignment is all about going way beyond a simple summary. And this is really the heart of it, right? Your job is to become a data interpreter. You're not just a reporter listing off scores. No, you're explaining what those scores actually mean. And even more important, you're digging into the why. Why is the student getting these results? That's the key question.
So this slide does a great job of laying it all out. A summary just lists the facts, but an analysis finds the patterns. Think about it like this. A summary might say the student scored low on phonemic awareness. Okay, fine, but an analysis connects the dots. It says something like, the student's difficulty with phonemic awareness, that's probably why he struggles to sound out new words, and you can actually see that happening in the video. See the difference? You're going from the what to the all-important why.
Okay, so let's talk about the tools you'll be using. To pull off this kind of analysis, you've got two key pieces of evidence in your toolkit.
So on one hand, you've got the formal, super-structured data from the James Lawler case study. And on the other, you've got the real-time, in-the-moment observations from one of the video case studies. You really have to think of them as two sides of the same coin. They complete the picture.
Okay, time to get practical. Let's actually start building this report. We're going to begin with the first three sections. Think of these as the foundation of your whole analysis.
So that first section, the student literacy profile, think of it like the thesis statement for your entire report. Your goal here is not to list every single detail. Nope, you are strategically pulling out only the most critical pieces of information, the key patterns, or maybe even weird discrepancies that you're going to unpack in the rest of your analysis.
Next up is the strengths section. Here, you're taking what we call an asset-based approach. All that means is you start by focusing on what the student can do. The formula is simple. Identify a strength, back it up with hard data from the report or something you saw in the video, and then explain why that skill is such a valuable part of their literacy puzzle.
And this right here, this is what separates a good report from a great one. It's not enough to just say, hey, the student has strong listening comprehension. A top-tier analysis explains how you can actually leverage that strength. How can you use it as a tool in your teaching to help support some of those weaker areas? That's the goal.
The Areas of Need section follows pretty much the same blueprint. You'll pinpoint a major difficulty, point to the specific data that proves it, and then, and this is so important, explain the ripple effect. How does this one specific struggle actually impact their overall reading and writing? You've got to show the consequences.
Okay, buckle up because we are now at the absolute heart of this assignment. This next section is where you graduate from just observing to doing some true critical analysis.
And yeah, there's absolutely no hiding it. The assignment guidelines could not be more clear. This section on the underlying factors is where you show your deepest thinking. It carries the most weight, and it's where you truly connect all the different dots.
I want you to think of yourself as a detective here. You're synthesizing clues from all these different categories to build one single cohesive theory that explains this student's unique literacy profile. It is not a list. It is an explanation.
And this is exactly what that synthesis looks like in practice. You're not just saying the student has weak working memory. You're explaining how that weak working memory, that's a cognitive factor, probably impacts their ability to decode words, which is a linguistic factor. And then maybe that difficulty leads to reading anxiety, which is an affective factor. See? You're showing how all these gears are interconnected and turning together.
All right, now let's move into the final sections of the report. This is where you translate all that amazing analysis into action. Because, let's be honest, a great report is only useful if it actually leads to effective teaching.
The name of the game here is specificity. You have to avoid those vague recommendations like, oh, the student just needs more phonics practice. No way. Instead, you're going to propose a really targeted strategy, something like a multisensory structured literacy approach, and then you'll explicitly state which area of need it addresses and why it's the absolute right choice for this student based on your evidence.
This is the part where you explicitly tie your two main pieces of evidence together. You really need to ask yourself, how did watching that video either confirm what I already suspected from the paper report, or maybe, did it show me something totally new? This is how you bridge that gap between the data on the page and what happens in the real world.
Okay, finally, let's pull back the curtain and talk about grading. Because understanding how this whole thing will be evaluated is honestly the best way to make sure you're putting your energy in all the right places. First, just the basics. This whole project is worth 100 points, and it makes up a pretty significant chunk of your final grade, 20%. Now, check out this breakdown. The slide makes it super clear, right? That biggest slice of the pie, a full 30 points, is for your depth of analysis. This just hammers home the central message we've been talking about this whole time. Your success on this assignment really hinges on your ability to explain the why, not just list the what. Honestly, this one sentence from your instructor is the perfect summary of the entire assignment. Seriously, print it out, tape it to your computer, make it your guiding principle. It perfectly captures that whole journey from identifying a problem, to explaining it, to figuring out what to do about it. And as you sit down to write your final, brief reflection, this is the big question to keep in your mind. Because at the end of the day, this project isn't just about getting a grade. It's about having that aha moment where you realize that thoughtful, deep assessment is the absolute foundation for all effective literacy instruction.